Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is from my good friend 69Krampus420 over on Reddit, No Sleep. As ever, please do let me know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further, and why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled Summer in Suburbia. Let's get straight into that. Tara has a pale, almost white skin. I can see its veins underneath. It's at least 8 feet tall, 3 feet wide and 12 feet long. Weight clocks in at about 100 pounds though, probably because of how skinny it is. Most of its height comes from its long, backward-facing front legs, curved like a bow. Back legs resembling that of a goat, without hooves or fur. All feet have 4-inch black claws and inverse thumbs on the back side. Its spine is long and makes up for most of the length. It's also curved to a startling degree. Also, there's barely any room for organs in there. No visible tail, head is oversized, and looks like a coyote or some other hellhound. Rows of thin, spiny teeth face backwards, towards the throat. Note to self, do not stick my hand in there. Despite almost no visible muscle mass, this thing has ungodly strength, not to mention a nasty attitude. After dosing it with some horse tranquilizer, I found that it recognized basic, non-verbal actions, at least to a small degree. Several hours and more tranquilizer later, I discovered that it understood English, but could only do so, or chose to pay attention when properly sedated. I rigged a makeshift keyboard to see if it could communicate. It almost immediately got to work, despite having such huge hands. I wouldn't listen to anything I had to say, but instead started writing in perfect English, some kind of story. I've let it work overnight and fixed the numerous spelling errors I assume were created from its clunky fingers. And the transcript is as follows. Start of transcript. Life is a cycle. You are born, you live, you die. Year after year, day after day. Cycle. Wake up, go to school or work, or do nothing, and then sleep. Every day for the rest of your tiny, miserable life. People always say, live in the moment, so that you never really get a full picture of the so-called life that lies in front of you. Living in the moment is something that you can never realistically do, because once that moment is over, or it's over, until the next day. And that moment passes you by again. Maybe you're doing something else, or maybe you're thinking about the previous moment in your life. How can you be sure that that trip to Paris was real? That time you went skydiving was real. The moment is the only real thing, and it passes by you so quickly that it might not even exist at all. In the end, all your happiest moments are in your past, because emotion is fleeting, and emotion doesn't give you any long-lasting benefits, because they exist in the moment that you call life. Thinking about the future like this never fails to awake dread in a person. It's called existentialism, and it's only the eternal truth. You work to live, you live to die. Your parents did it, your kids will do it. You did it. As a kid, this scared me. Sometimes boredom would wash over me like a unrelenting tides of the void. If I started a book, I reasoned then the book would one day end, and I'd be back to square one. But in those fleeting moments, I will be entertained. My mind will be shielded from the cyclical horrors of life before my eyes. And then the book will be over, and I'd feel the same again. What's the point of reading anyway? Very few creative works are truly original in their own right. Stories follow a predetermined path. Even the renowned works of Shakespeare can be picked clean to reveal the same bloody skeleton as children's novels. And everything is like this. No matter who or what you try to blind yourself with, it's always the same. Life is always the same. On one particular rotation around the sun, I was 13. My entire life was sprawled out in front of me. Summer in the year of 1986, Suburbia, USA. And school had been out for a month or so. The height of the dry season was upon us, and life was about, as you would expect it, a living hell. It's funny, really. Children spend their hours counting down the days until summer. And then what? To me, summer meant boredom. It would always manage to snag me, no matter how hard I tried to find something to do. Crippling, insane boredom. Being a brainy fleshwad is a curse. Humans evolved the ability to speak, problem solve, and analyze in order to have an edge on their enemies and prey. The human brain needs upwards of 200 calories a day just to keep you from dying. That means that your brain is so finely tuned and active that it's a literal requirement to stimulate it, or risk going clinically insane. The human brain has one purpose: keep itself and its genitals alive long enough to reproduce. And now we've done that, farming, building, language, art, religion and society. We don't need to hunt down our food. Everything is automatic. So we're left with a void, a giant, ever-present, encompassing void that is the byproduct of evolution. Boredom. Without stimulation, it sets in fast, and in a place like Suburbia, it settles down for good. The droning cicadas are a surefire sign that summer is here. Heat drips down and rises back up as a quiver in air. Sweat beads on your forehead and slides down your skin. The only release is the temporary cool of a popsicle between your lips, or the gentle clinking of a glass of lemonade as it makes its way down your throat. It's what people live for. Screams by the pool, and days sitting in the shade underneath that old oak in the park. Cyclical daydreams of an old species, and waking nightmares of a young one. At age 13, I had me and I had my friends, a group of young rowdy boys that wandered the streets of Suburbia looking for something or anything to do. I was considered a good kid by most. Fine grades, a stable family, and a 2-story house down on Maplewood Street. Any trouble I managed to kick up in my wake was just boys being boys. But something went wrong. I think. Or maybe nothing went wrong. When the right circumstances created the wrong environment. Maybe it was destined to happen. You never can tell which faces in the crowd, which babies born, are going to be the sick ones. The sun was low in the sky and I was sitting down with a few of my friends on the edge of the cul-de-sac. Beyond the prison of the winding streets and angry neighbours was an open, free place, the woods. My friends and I were sitting on a hill that overlooked the town, but it wasn't the rows of houses that had drawn us up, but rather the promise of escape, the excitement that was the dark trees ahead. The cool grass rubbed against my exposed legs, and the bark of an old tree caught the threads of cotton on my back. There were 3 others with me, none of which I could remember the names of, and then there was me. Sitting on the edge of civilization, as it seemed at the time, was exhilarating. We were forbidden by our parents to enter the wood, but it wasn't like we hadn't done before. My eyes scanned each frozen leaf, each spot of shadow that was cast as the sun slipped further into the night. Perhaps I was the only one that felt like this. The others were preoccupied with talking about girls and toys. And that day was the day that I first felt something rise up in me. Long after the others had left and the last rays of light melted away, I was left on the hill, staring silently into the underbrush. Something was so inviting about it, like the promise of something better than playing football in the park. Better than the thrill of ever getting my first kiss. It was a promise of freedom. Freedom from responsibility, from life, from boredom. Freedom from hell and freedom to do as I pleased. My heart pounded, my breathing sped up, and I could feel something reaching out from the woods. It gripped me, reached into my brain and twisted it around, and it felt good. When I finally did reach home, I found that I wasn't hungry. I went to bed with an empty stomach and flashes of images under my eyelids. Life wasn't meant to be spent like this. Life wasn't life unless you'd fully completed your place in the machine and come out the other side with your genes in the next generation. So what I was looking for was more than life. It was something different entirely. The next day the feelings had faded. I think we spent the day by Carson's pool. Or maybe we spent the day looking for things to do at the mall. The cicada screamed. Sometimes I would be alone with one other person. Sometimes I moved through the streets with a pack of 10 or more boys, looking for something to stave off boredom for a bit longer. Whatever we did that week, it doesn't matter, because it's been done thousands of times by millions of boys, and I was just a player in the game. Life remained the same until the next time I felt it, the next time I felt the presence of the woods, and it came to life inside of me. An old, seemingly abandoned home, a relic from an older iteration of life. Surely nobody was there. Nobody would care if we banged it up a little. We started by seeing who could hit the window. We all tried and failed. We tried again and I hit it. The glass shattered into 100 tiny pieces. It felt nice. I threw some more, encouraging an onslaught of rocks on the rotten thing. Something about the destruction of it felt nice, almost like I was cleansing it. And then there was the satisfaction of seeing it break under my influence. I was in complete control, allowed to do anything I wanted with no consequences. Freedom. And then it went boring again. After we ran out of rocks, I was back to feeling a numbing sensation in the back of my skull. Next, the boys and I started a dirtball fight. The innocence was there, but it might not have seemed so. Boys being boys, at the construction site where the dirt was rolled up and left there, we were able to release our aggressive tendencies with the satisfaction of watching a clump of soil explode on another's body. I must have hurt, but that was okay, because I was given permission to throw it at them when they entered the arena. I was in clear of any wrongdoing, consequence-free. My innocent acts of violence are always innocent until they begin to stack up. I found myself finding more and more ways to act destructively without getting into trouble. Punching a tree, uprooting weeds like a tiny Godzilla in the garden. Innocence became mischief. Causing trouble, it was fun. Tossing around the boring, cyclical lives of others was satisfying to see. And pranks began. Pushing people into the pool and taking extra hot dogs at the barbecue began to upset me. I needed more than that. Doing it every day, it wasn't enough. I needed one big act to amuse me. One day I got in a fight. In my eyes it was okay. Picking a fight was okay because we were fighting each other. If I got hurt, that was on me. If he got hurt, I was on him. Freedom to throw punches. I don't remember the name of the kid I fought or why we were. It's hazy. I was excited to feel flesh on my knuckles, to hear the satisfying yelp of my opponent, knowing that I was victorious and knowing that I had the ability to shake someone's life around. My influence was growing. It seemed. I could destroy it with my own 2 hands. The fighting became more frequent, and so did the window breaking. I began to vandalize homes, shops, or even churches. I picked fights with Suburbia's toughest bullies, and if I didn't come out on top, I'd try again. The other boys came to respect me and fear me. They stopped hanging out so much, which was fine, because the boys' hijinks that we were known for, they were boring me. Fighting was my new life. Fighting others and fighting the limits of what I could get away with. Only my most loyal friends remained, riding my back to the top of the social circles. But I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me. One day I pushed it too far. I was careless. I attacked a house with people still inside. I broke their windows and climbed inside and smashed their vases. The police were called and I wasn't allowed out of my home anymore. And boredom set in again. I couldn't stand the monotonous hustle and bustle of the people outside my window. Where were they going that was so goddamn important? Why was their life any more important than mine? What could possibly be so interesting out there that would be better left untouched by my hand? My friends were allowed to visit, but they didn't interest me. The buzzing in the back of my skull ignited more and more every day. My head was on fire. I dug my nails into my skin. My excessive energy came out in violent ways as I broke apart the toys that I had loved so dearly for years. The woods. The woods flashed before me. I could see my room expanding, growing. Leaves and vines and trees filled my vision, and I found myself drawing horrible creatures and vivid scenes of death when I fell asleep at night. One night, Todd Carson was spending a night at my house. I waited until nightfall and until everyone was asleep. And then I strangled him with my bare hands. I was in horror of what I had done. The buzzing and the images left my mind, leaving me with the earthly fears again. I had killed someone. Why? I loaded a body into a wheelbarrow and took it to the woods that night. I left Todd in a stream and climbed back into bed, feeling sick and dizzy. I told people he had left early that morning, while my stomach betrayed the truth. After the boy went missing, life began to come back to normal. I was feeling alright. My parents began letting me out more and more, and the violence was gone for a while, but not forever. Once again I found myself thinking about death. There were so many ways I could kill. It was like an art, but a sick one. I had to push the desires deeper and deeper with each passing day. And for what? What was so wrong about taking a few lives? Nobody is innocent, after all, and how can they complain if they've gone away? I was doing a service to them, freeing them from their mortal prisons. Freedom is what we seek, after all. And my next victim was little Sally Edmonds. She was unpopular. Nobody would miss her. I made it seem like I wanted to meet up. It was easy, seeing as she had a hopeless crush. But the only kiss she got that night was a kiss with death. I stashed her bleeding body under an oak tree in a forest and left the flesh to the animals. After Sally disappeared, people began to suspect that the missing children went running away. Kids were locked up under watchful eyes of their guardians. It was harder to plan my next killing behind closed doors, but not impossible. I could find ways around it. It was like a challenge. I snuck out at night and found a group of teenagers by the gas station that had not heeded their parents' warning to stay inside. I couldn't overpower a single one of them, but that's where my creative ability kicked in. Maybe I could separate them. All I needed was to take one by surprise. I recognized one of the kids as my friend's older brother. I knew enough about him to manipulate him. I wrote a note claiming to be from his crush and dropped it next to him when nobody was looking. He moved around the back of the building and got an earful of knife. This one was my biggest catch. I needed a wagon to pull him, and even then it was challenging. Nearly an hour later, I was back in bed, sleeping soundly, roots growing behind my eyelids. Alarms went off in every head in Suburbia the next morning. Nobody was safe from whoever was doing this. The police didn't want to admit, but they believed the serial killer was to blame, and I could sit back and watch his daily life was uprooted. People had scrambled to find themselves in a rotting world like woodlice under a dead log. And who would be the killer's next victim? I don't remember the girl's name. She was middle-aged and easy to catch off guard because I was just a little kid. She was sitting outside in the sun. I was risky during the day, but I believed I could pull it off. She was exposed. I tossed a homemade poison into a drink and left the scene. I didn't bother to clean up this time. It was easier to make a killing when I wasn't worried about covering up the evidence. I don't recall the next victim. It was the same day. It was either one of my friends or a volunteer at the local church. I can't remember which came first. I knew I was pushing it too far, but something in my mind was engulfing my thoughts. Bloodlust, it's a powerful, unrelenting force that consumes the sanity of its host. to take a life with my own hands, or that was power. I could feel it coursing through my veins like the vines in the woods. It grew with me, around me, and through me. My mind became fragmented, and I needed more. I used a knife to assault a local shopkeeper. He managed to fight me off and lock himself in the back room, where I assume he called the police. I fled the scene and slashed the legs of a woman and slit her throat while she was down. I attacked a policeman and left him bleeding on the road. I was open now. I was going to be shot if I stayed outside. So I made my way back to my home as sun fell. Both of my parents were home, and neither had heard the news yet. I killed my mother in the bathroom and sliced at my father. He restrained me and locked me up, sobbing. But I wasn't finished. My anger boiled through me. I needed more. And I kicked at the door. I stabbed it. I screeched and sliced at the wallpaper, trying to find a way out of the bathroom. I couldn't think in words anymore. Emotion drove my actions, like a rabid animal looking only to devour. I clawed at my skin, ripped out my hair. I bit at my fingers and cut myself all over. My body felt boiling. My skeleton lurched inside of me. Skin began sagging. I was easy to peel off, to cut away. The skin along my spine stretched and ripped in a long squelching tear. And I climbed out of my shell, a moth emerging from chrysalis. I was more than human, more than life. I was free. My new body was better than my old. I was sleek and still wet from my old juices. My legs were longer and more agile, on all fours like a beast of the wood, and I was a killing machine. I had long, thick claws at the end of each hand. In the bathroom's mirror, I saw my new, beautiful face. My eyes were black and glistened in the light with hatred for living creatures, with a desire for pain. I screeched and kicked down the door, sliding out of it and leaving my strips of skin on the bathroom floor. The man that used to be my father, still on the phone, turned to face me and began to scream. I dwarfed him now, knocked him aside with a single swipe. Blood gushed from a head wound, and I snapped his neck with ease. For the rest of the night, in my memory, remains a blur. Once I was overcome with a primal desire to kill. Memory took a back seat. I remember blood and wonderful blood-curdling screams, glass shattering and wood splintering. But I do remember leaving Suburbia, a flaming heap of what it once was, and striding off into the woods as the sun began to rise. Life in the woods is better than a life as a civilized man. Freedom for boredom, from regret, shame, all of those human emotions. Only the important ones remain: anger, pleasure, and bloodlust. And I can feel it now, sitting behind this glass. I need to feed. You're next. End of transcript. Notes. Jesus Christ, what the hell is this shit? A love letter to death? I did some searching and found no records of a mutilation like the story says there was. My initial thought was that it was just written down to scare me, but the DNA results came back this morning, and, well, it's human. 100% human, but with a lot of mutations. The kind that causes cancer and liver failure. But it is still human. I can't tell if I'm more horrified or excited. This shit flips the whole ass script on what I thought these terrors were. Not to mention the woods themselves. Are all of these things just people? It's a lot to digest. I want to get more from this creature, but it takes more and more tranquilizer just to keep it still. And that stuff, it's expensive. and now it won't even talk to me. It just stares through the glass with its beady black eyes. I think I'm going to have to put it down if I want to get anything else useful out of it. I just wish I could have more. It is my first live specimen, after all. That really sucks. But at least I get to name it. I'm thinking of calling it Nemo revagus antibanum, after my uncle's own discovery, although I'm pretty sure mine is better. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. Absolutely chest-pounding, twisted, and terrifying story there from my good friend 69Krampus420 over on Reddit, No Sleep. Big thank you 69Krampus for allowing me to narrate your work on the show. I certainly look forward to more work of yours in the future. Well, guys and girls, another one bites the dust. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. Why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. If you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things like myself, then why not get in touch with me at the brand new contact email address as on screen, which is contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to the week, getting stuck in whether you're at school or studying, or maybe you're a long distance driver. Whatever it is that you do, I hope you're enjoying it and are taking a fight back to life. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.